Okay, so for those who haven't seen the news, yesterday Sony announced that as of 2028, I believe it's January of 2028, they're discontinuing all physical discs and moving to only digital games. Now, it's only been a day since this has been announced, and I've seen a lot of opinions, and I just thought I'd weigh in on it. It's interesting, because the more I think about it, everybody I know thinks it's a bad idea, but of course the Twitter discourse is different. I'm old. In gaming terms, I'm a fucking fossil, so I'm team physical copies all the way, and I can understand from a business perspective why it would make sense for them to do this, because according to their numbers, like 85% of their game sales are digital, and if they're attempting to try to maybe convert the last 15% into digital, into digital, and just make it to where, that's their entire, then I understand that from a business perspective. But also, you have to understand, and you have to realize, and hopefully my phone won't fall off the front of my truck while I'm doing this. You have to understand that just because they, even if the market was 100% digital, it doesn't mean that they're going to lower their prices on games. Because not just video games, everything, the economy has been crazy, and prices for everything have gone up, and there's been talk recently of them, not just them, but games in general being like $80 whatever, and Nintendo did the exact same thing, where they're kind of pushing toward it too, because when the Switch 2 came out, they announced that, if I'm not mistaken, they were going to put digital games at like $70 and put physical games at $80. So there's a $10 markup on actual physical games, and a lot of people thought that was an attempt to push people toward digital more. And if the mentality is we're going to get rid of physical games in order to bring the prices down, put games back at $60, because I think we can all agree that $60 is kind of the spot where games have pretty much always been, or even like $50, something like that. If the whole goal here was to eliminate the physical costs, that way they can bring down the digital costs, then that would make sense. But I guarantee you that's not the way that this is going to go. I guarantee you that even after they move toward completely digital, games are still going to be $70 and $80. And that's, I think, maybe the biggest problem I have with this, other than I'm a physical media guy in general, not just games, movies, music, and I'll also totally admit that I'm well off enough in life to where I have the kind of money where I can afford these kind of things. And I understand that digitally it might be cheaper in certain aspects, if there's like a Steam sale or what have you. But I'm the type that I won't buy it digital if I can get it physical. The only time I'll ever buy anything digital is when it's like a smaller, like indie type of game that doesn't have a physical release that would be on a shelf. But if I can buy, like, for example, I'll give you a really good example of this. So, and I also understand, before I say this, I'm going to preface this with, I understand that probably the majority, I'm in the very small minority of gamers that would do this. But when the Switch 2 came out last year, I did not intend to buy one, at least not at launch. And it just so happened that the day that the Switch 2 came out, I went to Costco to get something completely different, and they just so happened to have tons of them. You know, they hadn't sold out yet. And I saw these Switch 2s there at Costco, and I was like, okay, I really want one. But the problem was the only units that they had at Costco were the Switch 2s, along with the Mario Kart digital, like the actual digital game inside the console. There had no physical copy. And I was like, even though I have this Costco membership in order to get discounts on certain things, they only have the Switch without the physical game in it. And I don't want that. So I literally went to Best Buy right after that and got just the console and the game separately. Because I wanted the game. I wanted the physical game. I don't understand. Like, it might just be, when I think about it, it might partially be like a generational thing where, you know, and when I talk about this kind of stuff, it kind of goes past the physical and digital stuff, because gaming really has changed a lot, you know, in the past 30 years. Because when I was a kid, and I would assume maybe the generation after me, you know, I would bring games to school. And I'm not just talking about like on my Game Boy to where I could play games at school. If I had a game that I had just gotten and was really, really excited to play it, and that was the first thing I was going to do after I got home from school, I would bring the game with me sometimes. Not all the time. But I would bring the game with me and have it in my backpack. Because that's not against the rules. At school, anyway. And, you know, when I had you know, and I used to bring, like, Nintendo Power magazines in my backpack to school and everything. But, you know, something they don't do with games really much either is that they don't put, like, when you do get a physical game, the case doesn't have a booklet in it anymore. And that's something that I would do. I would pull the booklet out and be like, holy shit, I can't wait to play this game when I get home. Look at the pictures. You know, I think that's a big appeal of, like, you know, I think about that Nintendo 64 kid where he got a 64 for Christmas, and him and his sister were freaking out and everything. And it's like, how dystopian would it be if instead of that box, the Nintendo 64 box that's, you know, very colorful, and it has pictures on the back of all the different games, you know, etc., it's just a Steam machine. And I'm not shitting on Steam at all. I'm not, you know, I think when it comes to digital, Steam is doing the best out of anybody. Or not, I don't mean best as in, like, financial. I mean best as in, if digital is the way you're going to do it, then that's how I would do it. But I would just hate to, like, it takes all the fun out of it. Like, I like having my collection of stuff, regardless of what it is. Video games, movies. Hell, I would still collect CDs if my truck, I have a 2016 truck, and it doesn't have a CD slot. 2016. And I can't play CDs in my truck, which still blows my mind. It's difficult. Like, I don't know if it's a generational thing, because a lot of the arguments I've seen too is like, when's the last time you bought a physical game or anything? And a lot of people say, you know, it's been like years. For me, it's been a week or less than a month at least. Like, and I think kind of my mindset when it comes to this is that if everyone moves to digital, I might just focus on my old collection and just start plowing through, because everybody that games has, you know, a backlog of stuff that they say they want to play, and all this old stuff on Steam sales, and in my case, physical things that they always want to get through. So kind of my mentality maybe at this point is to just go, like, yeah, if everybody just starts doing digital now, I'm just going to start working through my backlog. Because I don't know what it is. It's just, I feel like as somebody who has been, I still have my original copies of Red and Blue with my initials on the back of them, because my mom had to do that, because when my stupid self took them to school, we didn't want them to get stolen. And it's something I can physically hold in my hand and say, and I can hold it and look at it and say, these are the memories I have with this thing, instead of it being, if it were just digital, it would just be kind of an idea that you can think about and go, well, I remember this, that, and whatever. But when you hold it, it's different. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. I haven't really put tons and tons and tons of thought into this, because this is the idea of everything going digital. I think is something that has been creeping up on a lot of different markets, and it's kind of just been an inevitability, and I don't like that. I don't like, even if it is an inevitability, I don't think, because some of the arguments I've seen is like, well, everything's going to be AI, and you're digital overlords, and this is the way it's going to be, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And I'm like, I'm going to push back on that. Like, I'm going to be and a lot of people too have pushed back on it as well. Sony has gotten a lot of kickback in the past day, and I think a lot of for everybody that doesn't have a problem with it, there's also a lot of people that are like, well, this doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to care about it. And I think part of the argument is, like, once it gets, like, you don't care about it now because that's not the way it is now. But once you are into this only digital space, is there a possibility that people could just get used to it and time will just keep marching forward the way it always has? Absolutely. But I think there's also, I find it interesting that Sony has given themselves, it's not the top of 2027, it's 2028. So they've at least, whether they take it or not, they've given themselves a cushion to where if the backlash gets too bad, they can walk it back. Now, the odds of that, I think, are very low, but it is possible. They have at least given themselves the opportunity to do that. And to me, because you think about it more than just the sales. Like, if you take away digital, or if you take away physical and everything's just digital, then you lose tons of shelf space in stores. And I understand that in the past few years they've been doing that. Like, everybody's been doing that anyway. At least Microsoft and Sony have. I think Nintendo is in a completely different area, which is another thing too, because I think it's very interesting. Like I said earlier, it's hard to have this conversation and not kind of delve into the way the industry has changed over the past 15, 20, 30 years. Because nowadays, I think and if anybody has any other reason for this, I would love to hear it. But the only thing I can think of is that, Xbox and, like, at this point, the Xbox and the PlayStation are pretty interchangeable, because for the longest time, the difference between consoles was the exclusivity, were the games that you can only get on these consoles. But now that you can play Halo and Gears of War on your PlayStation 5, I don't understand, and even Microsoft bought Minecraft, but Minecraft's still available on everything, which it makes sense, I guess, you know, if you want to sell copies and make money that way, but it doesn't sell consoles. And I guess it kind of seems like the way that the industry is moving is that your money is from, I guess now that I think about it, it makes sense, is that initially there was no online store, there was no DLC, so when you bought a game, you just bought a game, and you had to have the console to do that. But now, I imagine, I haven't done the research on this, but I imagine they make the bulk of their money through microtransactions and DLC, basically add-ons, to where selling the console itself isn't that big of a deal. Because if you can sell Minecraft on every console and include every kind of skin you want, or like Fortnite, like if you can put Fortnite on every console and put every kind of skin you want, you know, and make that the way people give you money is just to buy tons of Fortnite skins or tons of Minecraft skins or whatever, you know, add-ons to games, I think that makes a lot more sense now that I think about it. I guess that would probably circumvent the idea of having exclusive games on your console. I just don't, part of me is trying to think of, like, am I just being a grumpy old man and I don't like change? Because I've also heard the idea of, you know, if everything's digital, you can't, you know, Christmas is pointless almost. Like, you can't open up these games on Christmas morning or something like that. You can't gift. They can't be gifts. Or you can't share them with the homies. Like, you can't, it takes away being able to give them in any way, you know, be it permanent or only for a certain amount of time. Like, you can't give people stuff. Being able to hold this game in your hand and give it to someone and say, here, take this, I want you to experience this, as opposed to, like, you know, hey man, I sent you a code so you can download this game and play it. It's just, it takes the personal, maybe I'm old as shit, I don't know. But do I think it's a bad idea? Like, and when I first heard the news, I'm like, that's a bad idea. That's not a good idea at all. But then the more I think about it, is like, well, I you know, and I could also look at it from the same perspective as some people have, which is like, well, I only play digital, so this doesn't affect me. It's like, PlayStation is my least used console by a mile. By a mile. Because if there's anything that I can get on both, I'm going to buy it on Xbox because of the achievements, because I'm a fucking, you know, I'm that guy. I'm achievement guy. And, you know, Nintendo is Nintendo. Nintendo's the only one that still has tons of exclusive stuff to where I can justify these purchases in my head. So, in all honesty, I don't really care that much about Sony, but I still think it's a bad idea on the surface. And like I said, I've seen their numbers. They say that it's like most of their sales are digital, and I believe them. I don't think they have any reason to lie. But I'm still wrapping my head around the idea of digital only. I don't know what I'm gonna do moving forward if everybody adopts that idea. I think with the quality of certain things, you know, because I make the argument about the Pokemon mainline games, because the last two generations have been kind of crap. You know, and maybe part of me maybe thinks, like, do I just not like video games anymore? Or is it the industry that's moving in a way that I don't like it? I don't know. But those are my thoughts. Like I said, if you are like a major fan of Microsoft or Sony at this point and have a reason that you would buy one console over the other that isn't just the games that's on it. I'd love to hear that take. But yeah, I think it's a bad idea, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they walk it back. It's only been a day.